There you
There
go.
we
Hey,
go.
Marcus. So
Okay,
good to
so
see
good to
you.
see you.
Good to
Love.
see you guys too. Um, yeah, so I until very recently, I had always struggled with inquiry.
Mm,
Mm,
And it was because I would ask a question and then, what am I, or whatever the question was. And I knew not to look for in thought
mm,
for an answer. So I would just, I'd drop into the body, see what came up. But of course, there were some body sensations because there always are body
yeah.
sensations, but they didn't seem to have any relationship at all to the question. And again, I don't mean in thought, but it didn't seem to make any difference whether I asked a question or didn't ask a question. Either way, there were body sensations, or at least so something happened a couple weeks ago, and well, I had started rather than asking a question in words, just kind of exploring,
Mm,
mm,
um, and somehow that started bearing fruit a couple weeks ago, where I would start the exploration first, and then a question would emerge
mm,
about whatever was found in exploring,
yeah.
which is something I'd never heard taught before. I'd always heard it like
mm,
ask a question and then
Yeah.
look, and but questions just started to bubble up, and the first question was, um, what is it about this, these sensations? What is it about this that is a self,
Mm, yeah.
or that feels like a self? Like what in all these sensations feels like a self? And that kind of switched over at one point to, wait, is there a self? Like, is there anything here at all that feels like a self?
Yeah.
Like, why am
Yeah.
I assuming? What am I
yeah,
Yeah.
assuming that
yeah.
there? What am I even assuming there's a self illusion based on?
Yeah.
I think I had maybe like a second of what felt like crystal clarity, where
Yeah.
it was like, oh no, there are just a bunch of disparate sensations, and there's nothing tying them all together
Yeah.
Yeah.
other than thought. Um, I feel like I only had that sort of clarity once, but I do now have the clarity of
The
being able
tools.
to
Yeah.
work with inquiry. The only thing that keeps coming up as sort of a concern is, am I bypassing? And what I specifically mean by that
Mm,
is, if there's a gorilla in the room, or if there's an illusion of a gorilla in the room, you don't get rid of the illusion by just not calling it a gorilla anymore. Right? It's like
Yeah.
that doesn't actually help, just calling it by another name, or saying, well, what is in the room right now that appears to be a gorilla when there's clearly like seen a gorilla. So
Yeah.
I feel like I've started to lose the thread of, in a sense, what I'm looking for. And
mm,
it's gone from a place where I assume this is good, but
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
gone from a place of like, oh, it's definitely what feels like a self here.
Yeah.
Like, now I'm completely confused. It's like, well,
Oh,
there kind of is,
oh,
but
Marcus.
kind of not.
Yeah,
Anyway, that's
yeah,
that's kind of where I am right now.
before we go on to replying, because I would like for you to talk about
Yeah.
the $1 million in the house thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, the first thing I want to say is that what you're experiencing is so typical for neurodiverse people, for autists. Us, if somebody asks me, in inquiry, just reflect on and think about. For me, that becomes a task that I am activating the parts in the brain, the default mode network that is actually in charge of selfing. So the more I question my thoughts, the more I become the idea of a self.
Mhm.
So what we are trying to point to all the time with the inquiries is exactly what you did on your own, that you activate curiosity. Because in curiosity, that is not a task. There is an anthropological curiosity to what is arising, and there's no right or wrong, which means that whatever is arising is welcome, and then you're just curious towards that. That is how an autistic or ADHD person needs to do inquiries. And also when you do touch inquiries, it is what he's pointed to. There's always another twist on the kaleidoscope in that curiosity. And it's to train the part of the brain that will start to be curious to every experience you have. So yeah, so I just wanted to absolutely enforce you in that and reassure you in that that is the way for you to go forward. Absolutely. And then could you do the $1 million thing?
Well, I actually have another question.
Yeah, go on.
So I first of all, I love that you started out just kind of looking at what's here and then letting the question arise. And that is exactly the right question to come up. What is it about everything that's showing up in this moment, in all of your senses, that seems to be implying that a self exists now? Because that is our assumption. And it is, the whole point is that it's only an assumption. So I like your metaphor about, if there's a gorilla in the room, but what we have, sort of been taught by the mystical traditions and then currently being reinforced by neuroscience is that there is no gorilla in the room. So we have no good reason at this point to believe that there's a gorilla in the room. So then we just have to look at, well, okay, why does it feel to me like there is still a gorilla in the room then? Clearly I'm delusional at some point, in some way, so how is this happening? And it's exactly what you experienced, is then to turn around and look at what is actually happening right here and what seems to be binding those sense experiences together. And then you had, as you said, that crystal clear moment of, oh, it's just different sensations. There's really nothing at that point. So then my follow-up question to that is, because you said you're kind of in that state now where it's like you're not completely convinced that there's a self like there used to be, and I understand, and I don't want you to feel like you're just bypassing and being like, oh, well, yeah, okay, I guess I've seen it. That's fine. There's no self. The question is now, just sitting here exactly where you are, what feels like it's binding all of these different senses together into one cohesive experience of Marcus?
Right. As far as I can tell, it is. So the top level way of describing it without going into a specific sense, which I know isn't really the way to describe it, is a feeling of centeredness, of like everything, like all of reality is it's like main character.
Yep.
When I try to figure out, okay, but what is that in the body?
Yeah.
Well, there are the actual sensations
Yep.
that sort of chest and head.
Yeah.
There are thoughts along with that are like, that's me.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because I wrote something about this in the Discord. Because I have aphantasia, I just assume, well, it means there's no visual image at all. I'm beginning to think there is the vaguest of visual image. I mean, it's like, darkest gray on a black background that you can barely see. And it's also the corner of my eye. And it's also just there for a half a second or something.
Yeah.
But there's some ghost of a visual map.
Yeah.
It feels like it's those three things.
Yeah, and for people who don't have aphantasia, it's a very common thing to have that internal visual body map that's overlaying everything, and it's very much helping. And is exactly as you said, the kind of sensations along the central channel is really important for kind of binding that feeling of self together for us. Have you tried experimenting, because that's the case? Have you tried when you're sitting there either meditating or just daily life, feeling the outer boundaries of the body? So going to the skin, the outer arms, the legs, the feet, the above the head, and see if you're putting all of your attention on those. If that alone, by defocusing attention on the sensations here, does that in itself seem to kind of turn down that feeling of centralized selfness?
I haven't tried that before. I think I may have misunderstood a pointer about that, or maybe it's a
Oh, yeah.
different pointer. What I heard before, what I thought the boundaries of the body were, or like where the edges of wherever
Yeah.
meet the
Yep.
air or whatever, and that's always been sort of confusing to me to feel into. But I hadn't thought about, no, what about like the hands and the feet
Yeah.
as opposed to the what feels like the me. So I
Yeah.
think that's a good. I'll play with that. I do know that the curious thing for me has always been whenever I've examined self, I'm like, weirdly, this feels like me,
Hmm.
whereas like my feet don't. It's like my feet are something me. My feet are something me has.
Yeah,
My hands
exactly.
are something me has.
Yep.
But they're not like someone could cut them off and it wouldn't be like, oh, me is gone. But if
Yeah.
somebody cut like this off,
Yep.
so that's the illusion. So that's a neat pointing. So yeah.
And I've also asked people in the past because a lot of people will feel like they're particularly centered, like behind their eyes. It's like there's, I'm here. And if you really focus on that, you can find that it's like sensation. It's like there's buzzing, there's muscular tension, there's something physically happening back in that region. And that tends to be felt as the me. And then a great exercise to do is to feel the sensation there, feel it as sensation, notice that it has sort of a me quality about it. And then, exactly as you said, feel the sensation of your left foot on the floor and feel
Mm,
that sensation in all of its, intensity.
Tensions in
Yeah, feel
the
the buzzing, the tension, the pressure, feel all of that. And then question, does that feel any more or less me than this sensation behind
mm,
the eyes? And if you can go back and forth like that, you can start to realize that what seems to be me located here is just as much base level physical sensation that has no added, self nature or anything on top of it. It's more of a habit of association
Mm,
that we've made because, for a lot of reasons. I mean, for one thing, all of the senses are basically coming in through here,
yeah.
except for the physical sensation of the skin and interoception. Most of it, our visual sense, our auditory sense, our smell, our taste, all of that is coming into this little focused area, and we get used to, if we're focusing on something outside, we get used to like squinting the eyes, and we feel the muscles contracting the eyes to focus them in different ways. And we get those, we talked about this with other people recently, that the if it feels like I need to pay attention to do something, to focus on something, we tense up all of these muscles, and a lot of it is in the face and in that area. So there are a lot of things that are
Uh,
feeding into it. Yeah,
yeah, I
sorry.
also think one of the reasons why we feel that the eyes and the nose and the this is where I am is because it's such a gross level of perception of
Yeah.
and we are very much aware. Like the brain is processing, what is it, 11 million bits per second,
Yeah, freelancing.
and we only have access to 20 bits per second. And the rest of it is happening as well, which we're not aware of, but it's the seeing and the squinting and the tension
Yeah.
is part of those 20 bit per second that we are
Yeah.
very much aware, which means that must be me.
Yeah,
I am aware of that.
completely.
But in brain scans, it's so clear that we are not aware at all of what is going on. It's only a very, very, very small
Yeah.
promille percentage of it
Yeah.
that is actually becoming to a conscious
Yeah.
awareness. But I think that we take credit for that.
Yeah.
That is me because I can feel it's me, and now I'm concentrating. You can see here how concentrated I am right now. So we have that identification with what is just like base level.
Yeah, and the perspective from which we see things, that if I'm
Mm,
looking in this direction, I'm seeing things there, and it seems to be, focusing into a point here. And if I turn my head, everything seems to be circling around me in 360 degrees here. And the way our hearing is that, the brain is constantly triangulating the
Mhm.
volume and the pitch and everything coming from the sounds reflected from different ears. And so the center of that triangulation is like right here, dead center between the ears. So I think it's a very clever and helpful illusion for navigating a three-dimensional world as a biological organism. But the problem is that we have this, extra layer of ability to then make meaning out of that and make this extra sense of a self glommed on to what is just a creation of perspective in a three-dimensional world.
And the brain is a meaning-making machine.
It is.
We want to make meaning of everything and give everything, you know, importance in accordance to what we perceive.
So, yeah. So I love the
That's,
fact that you're
oh,
being
great.
more aware too of that there might be like a vague, dark sense of image also happening there.
Yeah, and I think also the only other thing I can tell about it is I think as with a lot of people, it's from the third person point of view
Mm.
rather than I
Yeah.
mean, I guess it kind of has to be if it's a map
Yep.
of you,
Yep.
but I don't want to take up more time, but
Thank you
so
so
thank
much,
you for that.
Marcus.
The one thing I'll just say quickly, just because I think it's funny, is like the thing of me being kind of behind the eyes. I sometimes find myself when I'm trying to like look at what that is, like moving my head backwards, and I realize, oh, I'm trying to get behind the me to
Yeah.
like see it.
Yeah. And it's funny because it's just so fascinating, and I'm really eager to do that panel with people who, you know, you guys who have the and aphantasia and
Aphantasia.
stuff, because like I think people who have a strong internal visual sense tend to do exactly that, but not physically. Like you're
Mhm.
physically trying to move behind it. And what a lot of people do is you're visualizing the sense of self and you visualize the witness behind that. And then you visualize the witness behind that witness. And they're doing exactly that same infinite regress of stepping back behind it, just mentally instead of
I've done
physically.
the infinite regress too, where I'm like back and
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So feeling into what exactly it seems like is the one who is moving backwards, whether it's in the mind or in the body, that sense that there is something which can shift location and maintain a consistent perspective by shifting location. Um, is just one of those things that you just kind of feel into. You're not looking to give a to find a definitive answer. You're not looking to find the gorilla in the room. It's really to see what is masquerading as
Mm.
that ability right now. What
To
is
be able to find a gorilla in the
yeah,
room.
exactly.
Yeah.
What is, you know, creating the illusion of a gorilla in the room, and just be curious about which different sensory appearances might step up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and also who is creating the one that think that that person can find a gorilla in the room.
yeah.
There's neither the gorilla or the one that can find it. You know,
Yeah.
neither of them are there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Marcus. So good
Yeah,
Keep
seeing
thank
up the
you.
you.
great work. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Great to
wonderful.
see
Thank you
you.
for
Yeah,
checking
and keep
in.
up with the curiosity. It's really
Yeah,
good for a neurodiverse brain. Absolutely.
that was wonderful.
Love that. Thank you so much,
It was
Marcus.
a pleasure.
We have created a course of our first Fetter material. This course will walk you step by step through all of the ways in which identification is created and selfing happens. If you've been struggling to see through the self structure or have that first awakening shift, this course contains hundreds of tools to help you discover the selfing mechanisms when they're happening, and then see through the illusion of identification that are created. Along with over 14 hours of videos, this $49 course contains a full book worth of summaries, extrapolations on the videos, written inquiry suggestions, and other text. So work slowly, leave time for integration. This is powerful material and it can be life-changing.